Hello, welcome to all of you watching at home. Really happy to have Jessie Ghansah with us.
Hello.
Joining us in the blustery, windy and wet garden studio. Jessie's going to be talking on life with COVID, real hope in an uncertain future. Given that we're speaking on COVID, and I think many people think of COVID, automatically jump to lockdown, automatically jump to that 4 or 5 month marathon wherever they were cooped up in the country.
Yeah.
How did your family, you moved back to London,
Yeah.
how did your family and you occupy your time over lockdown? What did you get up to?
So we did a lot of TikTok videos. That was one thing. We also played pranks on mum and she played pranks on us. We went for walks when we could. Well, when we were allowed to, because we couldn't go far. But there's a park nearby and we went there to just sit, just listen to music, just talk. And we went for long walks when we could. Played some African games while we were walking, which is always fun because people just stopped and just stare at you like, what are you guys doing? Yeah.
What kinds of games then?
So there's one called Ampe. Now, Ampe requires, you can more than 2 people and there's a lot of jumping involved and each of you have to choose a pattern, you say, either straight or crisscross. And you have to jump and move your legs. And the key is to get your leg, if you're straight, in line with the other person's leg so that you get a point. And if it's crisscross, they get a point. And you can do, whilst you're jumping, you can do whatever movements, whatever actions you want just to make it more lively. And then there was a bit of hide and seek as well, which was very weird because we were hiding in very awkward places. But, but it was fun. It was good.
Right. What was the best hiding place?
Under a car.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Presumably the car wasn't moving.
Oh no. That would have been bad.
That is a risky hide and seek game.
Yeah,
right
that
there.
would have, but that was fun. Yeah, we did a lot of baking and cooking
Come on.
and hairdressing.
All the best things.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of girls, so.
How many?
So there's 8 of us together, including my parents. Five surviving children, and there's 1 boy, 4 girls, including myself.
Wow.
The boy's in the middle. Good luck.
Indeed. Going right back to the beginning, as you're growing up in Ghana.
In Ghana, yeah.
You're growing up in the compound.
Koko. Yeah. In
Whereabouts?
the compound in Koko.
In Koko.
Yeah. We used to just go do everything together, really, especially with the kids in the compound and in the neighboring compounds. We used to always just have fun together. We could go out and come back, and like the parents won't worry because everybody was kind of community watch. So everybody knew where everybody was, everybody knew everybody's kid, everybody knew what everybody's kid should be doing and shouldn't be doing. We all just had fun together. We went to the same school, went to the same church. We did everything together. We cooked together. Even in our houses, we could sleep over if the other parents couldn't be there.
What were some of your earliest vivid memories of the compound in Nkoko?
Yeah, so as the eldest, one of my responsibilities was to look after my siblings, really look after them, keep an eye on them, make sure they were getting taught. So my dad would teach me, and as I grew and as they grew, I would teach them. So it's always been like that. And then I'll help with the cooking, I'll help with the cleaning, I'll help with the compound cleaning, I'll help fetch the water. So I would have to get a bucket, go down, travel miles to get the water on my head and come back. Yeah, you just did, it was just normal. We just did what we did. And you have to do these things to survive. So it was different when I did see some of the kids around and they're like, oh, who packed your lunch? Mom did. I'm like, did you help mom? No, mom did it and we just took it. And I'm like, why didn't you help mom?
How was the culture shock of coming from Ghana to the UK?
It was huge.
Yeah.
One, there wasn't much sunshine. That was one, so it wasn't that hot, which felt a bit weird. So, and I've never really gotten used to it. So even now I'm still cold, like almost all the time, all year round. Unless it's like piping hot and everybody's dying, and I'm just like, this is life. Snow was a new thing. So back home, we used to paint basically the trees white, and we would decorate our classrooms and surrounding environment. The mothers of the community will come together. We'll cook basically for the whole community. The kids will be there. We'll be doing all these things. That was our Christmas. Here, Christmas, you come and there's so many lights and with all these, Santa Claus. Never heard of Santa Claus in my life. Snowman. I was like, what in the name is a snowman? And even the whole transport system, I was so confused. They were just like, to be honest, at least it was more coordinated when I'm back home, but I was still very confused. The money was confusing. It was just, there was a lot of learning the first year.
You settled into the UK.
Yes.
But family life takes a bit of a turn for you during, I suppose, early teen years onwards. Maybe you could share a bit about that.
So I remember my dad was hospitalized for a bit. My mom also got into an accident at work, which really kind of writes the next couple of years out for us as a family. So she's had mini strokes before. She's had she has a degenerating condition with her spine.
Right.
She has chronic pain. She now has diabetes. She has so many things. I remember her calling me and giving me, she's like, Jessie, look, they gave me a list of all that's wrong with me. And it was 2 pages long.
Gosh.
And one time she woke up and she was taken to the hospital because she was paralyzed. She couldn't feel her legs. Getting phone calls, Jessie, we're taking mom to A&E. You're like, what do you mean you're taking mom to A&E? What's happening? She's like, she's bleeding from her chest. And you're like, what? And you just want to go back home, but you can't. And you call them, they give the phone to mom. Mom's like, Jessie, don't come. I'm fine. I'll be fine. Just focus. So you focus and you do your work. So it's been a bit of an interesting ride, if you could say. But yeah. And then grandpa dying, and then, cancer diagnosis come, two cancer diagnoses come in, and you're just like, what is going on? Before I became a Christian, I knew what hopelessness meant. As in, I felt it. It's literally numbness. It's like total darkness with no sunshine, no moonlight, nothing. That's what hopelessness felt like. It felt like you being completely able to move, yet somehow you're paralyzed. So when people talk about hope is expectancy. Hope is a constancy of faith. Hope is, seeing the thickness, of the clouds, but right in the center, seeing that a light is coming through.
There was a moment, wasn't there, in your teenage years,
yes,
where you felt God really broke through.
Yeah.
Like the kind of pinpoint bit of sun.
Yeah.
Prising through the clouds.
Yeah. So that was when, basically in 2011, I had decided, again, this was before I became a Christian, I decided I'd had enough. So I've been having depression for quite a while, quite suicidal. I was like, I'm done. So 2011, when we went back to Ghana, I was like, my family, they're never going to come back to London with me.
Right.
My intention for that whole trip was that I would not step my foot back on the plane to come back to the UK. I was going to die in Ghana. They were going to bury me. I was done. This time, the plan is going to work.
You planned in your head something.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna basically kill myself. I was done. I wasn't gonna come back. I was totally done, totally helpless, and totally just done. I was numb, very numb. And my parents don't know anything about this. My sisters don't know. It was just me and my suffering together. So I was done. And then we were at the hair salon. The hair salonist was doing my hair. I heard a sermon on the radio, which really spoke to me. It really convicted me. It gave me, I guess you say, my first ray of sunshine, you'll say. Right? It gave me hope, because I didn't have none. I was done. And it gave me that. And then the next thing I know, I'm on the plane back to London, and I'm like, what? Why am I back in the plane? I'm supposed to not have come back, but now I'm coming back. And I remember going to my room. I was downstairs, second room on the left, seeing my Bible there, the Bible my dad gave me that I never really looked at, and then opening it and just reading. And then there was a prayer at the front, a prayer to Jesus, asking him to be my Lord and Savior, to forgive me of my sins, that I've acknowledged all these things, that yes, I've gone through all these things. Yes, the abuse does happen back, early on in my days, but everything that has happened from that day since has been my own, action, my own choice, my own willingness, I guess. And now I'm coming to you because, you're all I got. Like, if you are who you say you are, you're all I got. And you're the only hope I got. And I remember praying, just crying and crying and crying. And then that was it. I was done. Just like, I was free. I don't have to, lose my life in order to feel free. I don't need to do that. In him, I'm free. For me, that is what happened that day. And from then on, it was a huge transformation from Jessie. All of a sudden, I wasn't doing things that I normally did anymore. There's a song we used to sing back home. It's like, when a person becomes a believer or a Christian, it's like, the things I used to do, I do them no more. The things I used to say, I say them no more. The places I used to go, I go there no more. There's a great change since I've been born, since I've been born again.
How did this hope change and affect your perspective on the future?
My ultimate hope has been the same since I believed. And that obviously is in God and in his promises and what he said. And as I was telling you, the ultimate tomorrow, that tomorrow where there'll be no more pain, no more sorrow, right? And our tears will be wiped away, as you reminded me. And, that tomorrow where everything will be set right, all the pain, we will finally understand what it means. Or the suffering, we will actually see the full picture. Sometimes when you're making something, you don't see the whole thing. You just see a mess until it's actually done. For my family anyway, especially from my parents, what I've learned from them is this life is gonna bring you a lot of things. Sometimes there's going to be sunshine, sometimes there's going to be rain and all these things. But keep your eye on God first. Your hope is in him. He never changes. He's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. That's never going to change. And if that is your faith, doesn't matter if you're in the furnace, you're going to be fine. Doesn't matter if you're in the lion's den, you're going to be fine. Doesn't matter if you're in the prison, you're going to be fine. Like, it's so profound when you read like the Gospels and like they're in prison, for example, and they're sleeping. They're chained, but they're sleeping. And you're like, how can you be in prison, chained, but sleeping so comfortably in this weird, awkward situation? Or they get up in the midnight, as I said, and they're singing psalms to God.
You described actually earlier how singing in particular made hope tangible.
Yeah.
Maybe you could share a bit about that from days in the compound,
yeah,
but also now.
So we grew up singing a lot of songs. So in our culture, we're always singing songs about everything. In joy, we're singing. In sorrow, we're singing. In pain, we're singing. With tears in our eyes, we're singing. When we can't pray, we're singing, because that is what is gonna basically becomes our prayer. And there's a lot of songs we sing, and one of my favorites is a song, and that first line basically says, I will lift up my eyes to the hills, right? That's what it's trying to tell you, like to the mountains. And then the next verse, the next line goes, meaning, where does my hope come from? Like, and then it goes on to say, my hope is in the Lord. That is it. My hope is in the Lord. I'll lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? Where does my hope come from? My hope, my help comes from the Lord. So for me, those are the kind of songs we're singing. So they're crying, they're weeping, but these are the songs they're singing. And sometimes they'll go to the mount. Will travel to the mountains with their mats and their Bibles, just them, and they will just cry out to God, everything.
Where have you seen this hope really be tested within your family life? And where have you seen it work?
So I'll say, especially with my mum, with her condition. And I remember there was like a year where everything just was spiraling faster than normal. She was deteriorating really bad. So she's already had all these, degenerating conditions and everything. And now she's been diagnosed with cancer. Well, she wasn't diagnosed then when we saw her. She was diagnosed much later on. I literally came home and she looked like a skeleton. I didn't recognize her at all. Like, she was smiling, but all I saw was pain and sadness, And she was just, and I remember us just like thinking, Lord, is this it? We're totally hopeless and we're totally helpless. And then Dad was like, all right, guys, get together. We're praying. So that's what we did. We got together, we held hands as a family, and we prayed. We sang songs as we do. Songs telling God, this is where we are. That's fine. Help us through it. If our hope is wavering, give us more. If we've forgotten, remember us. If we've forgotten, help us to remember. Dad was speaking his language, Mom was speaking her language. We were speaking the common tree language, and then all of a sudden we were all speaking the same language, and then we were speaking English, and then it was just like that. We'll just pray until we were done. Then we'll go back to bed. Next day, same evening, we'll do the same thing. And eventually it's like we've been revived. It's coming. Okay, we're gonna do this. Mom, you have to go to the hospital, do all these texts. We're gonna go with you. We're gonna give you food. We're gonna be there. Oh, I'm gonna remind you of this thing. I'm gonna remind you of this passage. We're gonna sing this song. And I love that man of Galilee who has forgiven me all my sins and set my spirit free. I'm reminding you of that song. I remind you of who your strength is. And Mom is like, it doesn't matter what it is. We're gonna get through this. If God says this is it, and we're fine with that. We're okay with that. We'll get through it. And so I'll say that was when it really hit all of us.
Right.
That what happened with her, it really hit us huge.
Hope had a really transformative effect, I think, by the sounds of things, for your family and for your own faith. When you first became a Christian, you found something sparked in you, a curiosity of just about the natural world. Maybe you could share a bit about your journey to studying medicine now.
Yeah, so before I became a Christian, in my teenage years, I was fast-tracked to do science, my science GCSEs quite early, and most of my other GCSEs. And I really loved biology. I just loved how everything was just working and it was understandable, right? And I just loved that. And I wanted to also work with kids, so I was like, I can't be a biologist because I won't be really working with kids. And my teacher suggested I become a pediatrician. And I was like, really? What the hell is a pediatrician? And then she was like, it's a children's doctor, Jessie. I'm like, well, I don't know that. But back home, I've never met a pediatrician or anything like that. All I met was a doctor. That's it. So I was like, from then on, my goal was to be a pediatrician, bringing two of my passions, I guess, biology and children. That was it. So everything I did for that goal. And then when I became a believer, it changed my perspective on biology. Not in the sense that it made me less appreciative of it, but even more appreciative of it.
Right.
because now I was seeing it not just as cells or as the body or organs or any of these things. I wasn't just seeing how they're working and going, wow. I was seeing, oh my goodness, this is God's handiwork. He made this, this is great, this is phenomenal, and we have the privilege of learning this. That means a lot. And when you study the history of medicine and science, and you realize that all these ancestors of faith in those fields, right? People who believed God, who discovered all these scientific things and all these medical things, and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't have to divorce my faith from science. Because what you realize is, as someone said, science is the study of God's creation, right? By God's creation, as in us.
Right.
It's the study of creation by God's image bearers. As his image bearers, we are to study what he's given us. With medicine, it brings in a whole different dimension of that, in the sense that medicine will be bringing together God being a compassionate God and us reflecting him in that, and God being again a creator and reflecting him in that. And also, the third one would be God being healer, Jehovah Rapha, my healer, and reflecting him in that.
Those convictions laid the groundwork then for studies in medicine.
Yes.
And then COVID hits.
Yes.
And you head back home.
Yeah.
You're in lockdown for some of it, but
yeah.
but also you're still learning online.
Yeah.
You have placement time as
yeah.
well. In all your mixing with different types of personalities, backgrounds, characters, when this big looming cloud, I suppose, hangs over the world,
yeah,
and the future seems so uncertain, what other hopes have you encountered? Where do you see other people trying to make sense of what's going on right now?
I remember meeting a patient, and we were just talking. When the doctor left, we were just talking, and she just cried, and I had to cry with her, because there's no way I could just sit there and not cry, because it's almost like, one, she's lost everything, and then COVID hit, and whatever thread of hope she had, the lockdown and the COVID literally took that with it. So now she's just totally helpless, and you're sitting there wondering, what can I do? And as a Christian, you have this desire to just be like, let me talk to you about the one who is there all the time, doesn't matter what. But the medical field restricts you in some sense in doing that, unless obviously the patient initiates or something happens. But with I couldn't do that, so then I did the next best thing, which is I prayed in my head just for this patient, because knowing what it's like and not being able to comfort as you should is hard, and much harder for the patient, because nobody, especially with the COVID thing, the distance, the signs of affection you will show with like the hand on the shoulder or holding their hand or anything like that, all of that is gone as well, so they have nothing. And then the GP comes back in, and this patient is just there, and she can't even speak, she's just crying and crying. And the GP does what, to be honest, what we can do right there. She gives, I don't think she realized what she did, but she gives this patient a ray of hope. I don't think she realized it. She said, I'm gonna make an appointment just so you come in, sit down and speak with me. You don't have to talk about whatever is bothering you. You can talk about whatever you want. I'm just gonna give you that time. Sometimes that's what patients need. I remember hearing a doctor who just saw this patient being totally helpless, and she just he just went and sat next to her. It's busy. He went to stand next to her, and that was enough. Just for a couple of minutes, not so long. Sat next to her, just had a little chat, and then went back to work. You know, sometimes I think with all these things we forget that we're dealing with human beings, not cases.
Right. Throughout us chatting just over the last couple of days as well, I've been really astonished at how much pressure your family have come under at various times in your life, and yet the maturity with which you approach such profound suffering. And it strikes me that I just live in a culture that repeats back to me that comfort, I suppose, is the goal, and suffering is just to be avoided, and we can't really learn much from it much of the time. This makes COVID times tricky because we're constantly faced with this sort of looming mortality, and the worry that life is fragile. And yet you operate with such a peace, your family and yourself, and it's noble. And I wonder, just as a final question, what kinds of things can we take away as we encounter such profound suffering that can help us for the rest of our lives?
Suffering is not something to be despised. It hurts, and it hurts greatly, and it's quite damaging. But don't despise it, or else you will miss the lessons it's trying to teach you, right? And you cannot comfort someone else in suffering if you have not understood or really felt it, you know? Like my mom one time being in total agony and her telling me, Jessie, I'm going through this because I'll meet someone one day who is also suffering, and I'll be able to comfort that person, really understand what they're going through and really be able to comfort them. It's not purposeless. There's a reason for it. I may not understand that reason now, but it's there. I may not know the full picture, but I'll see it one day. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe it'll be in the next life, who knows? But I'll be able to comfort that person. Suffering, joy. For example, if I say joy, some people confuse joy with happiness. You know, happiness has to do with things happening. You know, you're happy because something has happened. Joy is not reliant on things happening. You can be happy, right, when everything is going well. But can you be happy when things are bad? That's the difference between happiness and joy. Joy, you can have joy in sorrow. I've seen it. I've done it. I've been there. Right? And you can understand joy like that if you haven't understood suffering. You know, even happiness, you cannot really understand how awesome, how sweet happiness is until you've actually felt some kind of suffering. You know, until you lose something, you don't realize how much whatever it was meant. Like a loved one, you don't understand how much they mean, or how much they've done for you, or how much you cherish them until you've actually lost them. Like, I could talk about my grandpa all day. He was a wise man, but I'm telling you, like, when they told me he was gone, it hurt. Like, I was like, I wish, because the last time I saw him before that was 4 years ago. It's like, oh, I wish I just called him just to tell him. Just to tell him. And I remember they said the grandchildren should write something for grandpa, and obviously they put me in charge. I don't know why. And I was just sitting there on the computer, and I just started writing. And I was just like, I wish I could tell him this. Because now he's gone. He's not going to hear from my lips until the new creation on earth. He's not going to hear from my lips. That's what I mean. Suffering. So all this thing going on with COVID and everything. If there's anything I'll tell you, obviously, the clear one being God first. The second one being remember each other, you know? To love one another, to care for one another, to see what's right there in front of you, you know? To cherish, to be aware of the things going on. Like the flowers in the field, do you see them as they are? Do you see their beauty? Do you actually see it? Or are you just walking past and just going by? You know, just cherish things. Cherish things. That's what suffering should teach us. Cherish things and be very humble.
That's good.
That's it.
Thank you, Jessie.
No problem.
Really appreciated chatting. And thank you so much for those watching on at home.
Thank you.